for you. Yes, I do. I'm like your angel of love, girl. I've come to see you through. So when you cry, let me wipe your tears. When you're scared, I wanna be there to calm your fears. When you're in need, baby, ring my phone. I'll run right over and we'll make love all night long.
What it do? What it do? How's everybody?
Great.
Wonderful.
Great.
Awesome.
Dave
Awesome.
Roberson, you look a lot like another Roberson, but it's not you. It's a different Roberson.
Yeah, what's going on, man? I'm just over here vibing off that intro, man.
Oh man, I appreciate the love. I appreciate the love, man.
You don't have to say you appreciate it. That was all of us. That was our group, our R&B group. That's everybody on the screen.
Right.
They heard me come in on the chorus.
Right.
I was believe.
You was
I
in
didn't
there
want to
cutting
tell
one,
on
baby, you was in there cutting one.
That's right. That's right.
Y'all doing good, man. Glad to see y'all, man. It's
Absolutely.
It's a snowy Thursday night in Chicago. I heard it's snowing all over the place. It's my oldest brother's birthday, and I just talked to him, and he was saying that it's like 9 inches or something in Peoria. He's only about 3 hours away. What? So how come he ain't here if he here? He just wanted a vacation from us.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Like
There's a hologram behind you, Dave.
right.
It looks like Mel.
So I had a sketch comedy show. Hello, everybody viewing the show. I had a sketch comedy show. They got canceled due to weather. However, I'm about to leave now to film the scenes of this web series that we put out every Friday as well. So I just came to say hi. You know, for you Game of Thrones fans, there always has to be a Stark in Winterfell. There always has to be a Roberson in the cave. So, you know, Glenn be on good behavior.
I was going to say, if your plans change, come on. We got room for you at the table. Come on, kick it.
Nah, man. Well, one Roberson is already overwhelming, man. Both of us at the same time is. Love y'all. Have a good one.
All right, man. Love you too.
All right, let's get this party started, man.
Good to see you, man.
Let's do it.
Hey, man. We are honored to have a distinguished guest with us this evening for the post-Valentine's Day show. Production team, let's go.
Kevin Patrick. This man is a full-blown business. Look at this brother sitting back in Hawaii smoking a cigar. That's doing it. His best-selling book, Fatherhood, make sure you pick it up. Unbelievable. Grambling State University graduate. Wait a minute. I think I saw some. Oh, hell no. Another Kappa. Look, man, we got to get somebody on the door. This could not keep happening.
He said we got to get somebody on the door.
Somebody on the door.
Hey, man, I did not know that about you, man. Yours in the bond, my brother.
Yo.
And Mel, who you just missed, Dave's brother. Mel is also a distinguished man of Kappa Alpha Fraternity Incorporated.
Nice.
So yo to you and yours, man. Yo to you and yours. Yo.
Yo.
Glad to have you, man. Glad to have you. Hey, man, real quick, man, give us about 45 seconds to a minute on the uniqueness that is Kevin Patrick, what you're doing, where what you might be doing can be tapped into by our viewing audience. And before he does that viewing audience, I'm going to ask you guys to share the show. Don't just hit share, but actually copy the link and paste that link into your social media. And I'll ask you to do that again as the show continues. But Kevin, man, tell us a little bit about yourself. Good news.
Great. I'm Kevin Patrick. And first, just let me say, so happy to be on the show. Excited about the Man Cave. I was introduced to you all because I was on Books and Bottles last month. But at any rate, the short story is I was born and raised in Oakland, California. My mom still lives about 2 miles from the Oakland Coliseum. Went to Grambling State University, pledged Kappa, Alpha Psi in the fall of 1984, majored in computer science. Currently, my wife and I, we're in Aurora, Colorado, which is a suburb of Denver. Got a daughter, Asha Patrick, and that's what my book is about. My story about my desire to be a dad. And I figured out that I couldn't actually, I wanted to write about her only, but as I got started, I figured out that I needed to tell about my motivation. So I was a computer science major in Grambling, still doing a bunch of tech stuff, been in the industry for, I guess, 35 years or so. And so that's my short story.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not a dad, man, but I'm a proud uncle, and I really, man, wish we could get a movement going, man, to celebrate dads of color specifically, because I don't think dads of color get enough attention, enough love for the sacrifices they make and what they do, and I think it's just part of the stigma that follows us as Black men, that that we aren't seen as these doting, loving, supporting dads, and of course we all know that that's not correct. So
Sure.
I'm glad to hear that, man. Unfortunately, Mel won't be on with us, but he doesn't stop talking about his daughters, man. So and Dave, you got children?
No children.
Yeah, I didn't think so. And Robert has 17 children by 40 different women. So we don't really talk about it.
That's actually what the lover of life means. Lover of creating life over and over and over again.
Hey, he loving life in a way that's
So we got Dave stepping in for Mel. You're gonna tag team with Sean. Oh man, this is gonna be a long night.
for you, my brother. For you, like Bane would say, for you, it's gonna be a long night. Hey man, well again, man. Glad to see you all, man. Let's jump right in it. We know the hour goes fast. Kevin, thank you for being a first timer. And when the show is over, do not leave. Hang out. We're gonna go back to the green room where we started and wrap up and talk some more good stuff. Hey man, let's talk about this halftime show, man. I couldn't wait to get back to rap with you guys, man, about the halftime show. Dave, I think you're the baby of the bunch, but you come from a family that has music lovers in it. So I would imagine that it didn't land on you any differently at this season of my life, at that season of your life, because I would imagine that you love music much like your brother does, man. But what did you guys think of the halftime show? Kevin, as our distinguished guest, going to let you go first. Don't make me cut you. But
No. Hey, I was super excited about the halftime show, and I think more importantly, I could tell from the production that it was done by us. One of the things that stuck out to me, I'm from Northern California. My wife's from Southern California. However,
where it never rains.
Say that again.
I said where it never rains.
Yeah. Tony.
Right.
But what I noticed is that even the guys that were out there dancing, I saw the khakis, I saw the Crip Walk, and I knew that that production was fully us. And so I love the representation, Gray, that was fantastic.
It really was. And before I let anybody else chime in, I'm not going to be on my soap. I'm going to try not to be on my soapbox, but I hate how
climbs that box.
I was about to say something, but I was going to wait.
I hate the way, man, our culture gets skewed, by people who just don't want to take the time to familiarize themselves with it, and so like the next day I don't know why they were jumping around in prison uniforms, and I'm like, yeah, those weren't prison uniforms.
Right.
They were khaki suits. But if you weren't so busy judging the culture as opposed to learning a bit about the culture, you would know that those weren't prison uniforms. They were khaki suits. So that kind of stuff, always irks me a little bit. Like the whole kneeling. Eminem wasn't supposed to kneel and yada yada yada. That was never an issue. M was never told not to kneel. All this crazy stuff gets going. And because we love controversy and drama, we jump right on it. And start spreading it. Dave, come on in as the youngin. Come on and tell me what you thought about it, man.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody would try to argue that those were pre-prison suits, those khaki suits, but that's a whole nother thing. That's a whole
You know what, Dave? But that would
Not
be more
me,
accurate.
not me.
It would be
Not
more
me.
accurate, as
I'm
tragic
just
as it
saying.
was.
Right. But no, I mean, maybe the baby of the bunch, but no, I'm definitely.
A hip, a hop,
That
a
was the
hippie.
line of the night. That was the line of the night, Dave. Like if you wear that to the mall, you probably going to jail. But
I was just saying, but that's not me. But no, baby of the bunch. But no, I definitely was around for NWA. Listening to it back on the block. I may have been sneaking. You know, I wasn't at that time buying my own records or buying my own tapes. But you know, out there listening on the block with the older cats. So yeah, know a lot of it well, man. Dre's had a huge imprint on the culture. Period. You know, regardless of any challenges throughout the years, definitely has helped to move music forward in a lot of ways. So yeah, it was just dope to see, man. And I'll probably say my favorite part was just I was surprised to see 50 because they had talked about the major five that was going to be in it, but when you saw them hanging upside down and just in the club was so monumental, the way it just hit, you know, his whole thing, you know, the mixtape and dissing everybody the way he did, the way he hit the scene was so crazy, and for them to to include that was just super dope. So
yeah, for sure. What did you think about Kendrick being included in that group?
Oh, I mean, you got to bring in a different generation.
Absolutely, that's what I was saying. He's great. You know, he's the next generation. So it's almost like they were handing that baton off.
Yeah, which they've done before, almost formally on the stage. Yeah, but dope to see him in there mixing it up and doing his thing too.
And then they had to include him because he's a product of that area. You know what I'm saying? So they had to include him. Glenn, talk to me. What did you think about it, man?
Oh, I thought it was a great show. And if you think about it, Dre, for the last 35 years, Dr. Dre has impacted music in different ways. So if you think about it, if you go back to the NWA days, then you go to the DOC, then you go to Snoop, then you go to Eminem, then you go to 50, and now you go to Kendrick. So every major rapper of each generation has had Dr. Dre's fingerprints in their music in some way, shape, or form. So it was like bringing together 35 years of hip hop. I mean, I've said it before when we did our Mount Rushmore hip hop, I put him on there because I'm like, he's hip hop's Quincy Jones. Yeah. There's nobody else that has touched hip hop in the way that he has throughout the life of the genre.
Yeah,
so, it was a great show, and for those people that criticized it, you know, I think somebody actually called it pornographic almost, which I guess he's never seen a cheerleader because they've had less clothes on than anybody out on that show that I saw. But it was Charlie Kirk, and if you know Charlie Kirk, you understand pornographic. You know, saw his wife, so anything is pornography to him probably. But that's a whole nother story.
Much like I do with movies that I like, man. I tend to go start researching the production and the behind the scenes and finding out what led up to, you know, that moment. And one of the interesting things that I learned about Dre in my post halftime show deep dive was the fact that a long time ago he said he stopped working for money and success. Of course, you can do that when you've had a lot of success and made a lot of money. But he says the reason you don't see him with a whole lot of artists is because he's looking for inspiration. Like that's the only time basically he comes off the bench is when he's looking for inspiration. And if you go look at the story of how him and Eminem connected, dude, it's a really, and I'm talking about from his viewpoint, right? There's some footage on YouTube that talks about how he and M were both about to leave the industry for the most part. Dre couldn't get anybody to mess with him because he wanted to mess with this white dude. The industry only wanted to support him, you know, doing the gangster thing and perpetuating that. And so he really gambled everything on M, and M had nothing. And then M became one of the most significant, you know, voices, not only that he'd ever touched, but of hip hop as well. Robert, what do you think about it, man?
Well, thank you very much, Sean, for asking.
What the question was?
I remember the question, but I was wondering when I was going to jump in. But hey, the two things, Mary J, you know, of course, and Snoop. I think that Mary J did her thing. You know, there was some controversy about not getting paid for, you know, the halftime shows, but nobody gets paid for it. But she kind of, you know, talked that up a little bit. But Snoop still skinny as ever. I don't know what he does to keep in shape. But there's also
I think we know what he does.
right,
Everybody knows what he does.
right.
I wouldn't call it in shape. He just
to keep him low or keep him skinny, But the other thing, guys, that in the news that they've been talking about, there have been about 15,000 signatures that they've gathered to kind of talk about banning that type of stuff from being done at the Super Bowl. I don't know if you guys saw that.
What type of stuff is that?
The dancing. They thought that they were too provocative, that Mary was showing too much of her.
Did anybody see last year with Shakira and Jennifer Lopez?
Yeah.
They saw it, but that wasn't us.
That wasn't us, man. Remember, this is a whole, black ensemble for the most part. I mean, Eminem is black too, but it's, that's really
like Bill Clinton is black,
right?
No,
so
let's not do that. Let's not go there.
Yeah, so that was that's the big issue. That's the big push.
Man, that stuff is ridiculous, man. It's always different when we're in the front. And
I would imagine they didn't like Eminem kneeling either.
Well, supposedly, and the NFL issued a statement as well saying they never had a problem with it. They said it was a part of the entire show as they rehearsed it and viewed it. So they never had a problem with it. I think that was perpetuated, Dave, actually, because it's easy to say that simply because we're going to associate it with Cap, when in actuality, if I'm not mistaken, he started kneeling doing the "I Ain't Mad at You" intro, which would have then been a tribute to Pac. So you know what I'm saying? There's some different schools of thought about why he kneeled and what made him kneel. But Dr. Dre said that the kneeling, I watched an interview with him out in front of his house this morning. He said the kneeling was always a part of the show and they never had an issue with it. I also heard that they, and he didn't address this, I heard that they didn't want any bandanas. But again, Dre never mentioned anything about any bandanas. He said there was a few little tweaks, but the kneeling was not one of them. So
Snoop said, "You don't want a bandana? I'll raise you one."
I'll wear one.
Right.
He wore a whole bandana.
But no, that Eminem kneeling had definitely Cap written all over it. I mean, that's a lot of things you could do to honor Tupac. You could throw your tubes up. You could do a number of things. But in the middle of NFL's biggest night,
right,
with that going on in that history with Cap, there's no way that wasn't.
That was certainly the way I received it. I thought it was a nod to Cap. Let me ask you this. This is the last thing I'll ask about that. The very last scene, to me, that looked like Dre looking out over the city. But there were some people that said, you saw the back of a guy looking out over the city. Some people said they thought that was homage to Pac. But to me, if it was been homage to Pac, they would have maybe used a bandana or something, or a vest, something that he was, kind of synonymous with. And it was to me, it was a bigger dude than Pac. But some people said that was supposed to be Tupac looking over the city. I find it funny, man, that that stuff makes people mad. I remember when when Beyonce did hers, and she did that whole college band theme with hers. Mm-hmm. And I hate to even mention this little girl's name, but she's one of these Republican correspondents, Tory, whatever, little blonde chick, little hate spewing little blonde lady. And she was upset because doesn't Beyonce know she has white fans? And I was offended. And I'm like, but Beyonce's black. You can be offended all you want, but she's black. So she does black shit. So you get on board with her or you don't. But she's not supposed to cater her act, strictly to her non-black audience. That, and I think that's part of, and we're not going to get into a race thing, but I think that's part of the mentality of a lot of elite white America, is that they feel personally neglected when we speak to the things that are true for us and the things that we need to champion. And they go, but I'm your friend. It's like, okay, yeah, you can be my friend, but that doesn't change the reality of my world. And as much as I may care about you, you're a very small part numerically. of the people that I love and care for and have to engage. So it's elitist of you to think that I'm supposed to prioritize with you.
Right.
Right. I didn't mean to get heavy on y'all, but okay. So let's switch.
I'm gonna need another drink.
You already had one on deck. Stop acting like you did.
Hey, let me throw this out there. I mean, this is kind of off the cuff, but I did wonder, did Suge Knight get a chance to see that production? So some of them cats that they made some of that music in their studio. I mean, he's on lockdown now, but I did think about Suge with his.
Well, Snoop now owns Death Row, and he just made $45 million selling NFTs for his new album, Back on Death Row, BODR, Back on Death Row. He made $45 million selling NFTs.
Nice.
I saw some memes, Kevin, that showed what was supposed to be Snoop Suge watching the Super Bowl halftime show. This funny face,
Yeah.
Hey man, let me throw this this quote at you guys. I was watching. I'm a big fan of this stand-up comedian. She's I want to say she's Vietnamese. Her name is Ali Wong, and she just recorded her third special for Netflix. And she's kind of known for being sexually crass and that kind of thing, because that's not typical of the women in her culture, at least from a public standpoint. But she said that it's 10 times harder for a woman to find a good husband than it is for a man to find a good wife. 10 times harder for a woman to find a good husband than for a man to find a good wife. Dave, you as I don't know if Kevin's married, but Dave, I know you're happily married. I'm gonna give you the first crack at that, and tell me, what you think when you hear that statement. Do you agree with it? Is it misleading? Talk to me.
Yeah, people like to throw those types of numbers out and those generalizations. I think for any of those types of statements, man, you can find a bunch of people whose stories support it, and you can find a bunch of people whose stories who don't support it, who go in the opposite direction. So, I mean, I'll speak for myself. When I was dating, I didn't feel like there was necessarily a shortage of quality women in my life, and I just felt like I chose a great one, and I'm in a good situation. And I do happen to hear, women complain about this man's not this man's not that. But it's tough to say, to be honest. But my experience, I would say, so some good sisters out there to hold it down.
Yeah, I think that it's probably hard to not filter your interpretation through what it is you think. You bring to that table. Me being a guy who tries to be noble and try to be a good dude, it used to be hard for me to hear these horror stories about, oh, men are so terrible, that I had to be able to step outside of myself and allow people their experience, and so even if they're experiencing something different than they would experience with me, I can't deny them the reality of what they experience. I can try to speak to them about the reality of disproportionate behavior, or the reality that it's a numbers game and you're going to encounter some of this, like it or not, because there's no universal affirmatives. And that's probably where I began to have a problem with things when they're laid out as universal affirmatives.
Right. And let me just jump back in there real quick, because I would consider myself one of those quality guys that this person is probably talking about.
And so
when I was in that single space, to be honest, I mean, I had some successes here and there. We won't relive.
No need.
Right.
But names are changed to protect the innocent.
There was a number of situations where women, passed over me and looked over me for different reasons. Maybe I wasn't, didn't have a table at the club or this type of thing or that type of thing. And those would be the same ones to jump on Instagram and post, well, it's 10 times easier for me to do whatever. So, they just probably looking in the wrong places, or just looking at the right people in the wrong way.
Yeah, I find it fascinating, man. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine today, and I was saying sometimes I wonder if people posting on social media really think about the fact there's people that know them reading their posts,
right?
Because they post stuff like, wait a minute, you cheated on me twice. How you posting you know, that you can't wait to be in a loyal relationship. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, but you cheated on me twice. Was I supposed to not see this, or you know, like what? But Kevin Patrick,
Yes.
talk to me. 10 times harder for a woman to find a good husband than it is for a man to find easier. 10 times harder for a woman to find a good husband, which of course means that there is a disproportionate number of good men out there. That's the underbelly of that statement. But tell me what you think.
You know, I want to say at the top, I disagree with it.
You married?
I disagree with that statement that it's harder, 10 times harder. But let me say this though, numerically, depending on where that is coming from, if you're talking about Black men, you know, the numbers get less because of systemic issues, prison. So the numbers dwindle. So I think our women have less to choose from. And I am married. My wife went to Grambling as well. But I will say one of the things that, you know, one of the stereotypes when they throw out those numbers, you know, I've heard some women, you know, say that all men are dogs. But one of the things that I will argue with them is that for every dog out there, he's doing it with another woman. So does that mean that 100% of the men are dogs and 50% of the women are dogs, and maybe half of the women are doing the 100% of the men? I submit to you that it's a sin nature, and it's been going on since the beginning of time. So they throw those numbers out there. I don't
as we start to count the hate mail you just got us, Kevin. I want to ask you another. I want to ask you. It's okay, brother. We're used to it. I wanted you to own it and know that you would be the catalyst for this week's hate mail. But I'm not afraid. That's why I'm asking you another question.
Yeah.
So in that reality, right? You mentioned the systemic racism that we suffer and that kind of thing, right? When women make that statement, and of course we can't know for sure because this is them saying it. I'm asking how you interpret it because I don't like when women try to define what we mean when we say it, but I am allowed to interpret it, right? When I get it. So I'm going to ask you this: when they make that statement in your mind, are they speaking to the quality or the quantity? You're talking about the quantity based on the limited number that society has given us. When in my mind, I hear it as a dig at the quality of men that are available.
Right. So, and I would say this, you know, it's very important, you know, where you look for relationships, right? Mm-hmm. You know, it's kind of like going to you're going to the lake and you trying to catch trout, but there's no trout in that lake. Right. I submit to you, I know, you know, I went to Grambling and it was it's HBCU and it was all Black, and I know a lot of Black men that would be classified as squares, that was shy, you know, didn't really want to reach out, and we're on the fringes.
Yeah, but we know you call them square then, you call them boss later. We know that. Right.
Right, exactly.
You're working for the dude that you call a nerd and a square.
Right. I would say that potentially, you know, where you're going to look, if you're going to the club trying to look for, you know, maybe you need to change up where you're looking, and maybe it may not be hard to find those places, right? I mean, maybe that may not be understood, but the quality, I say that they were out there, but you know, like Dave's brother, they in the house playing Dungeons and Dragons and ordering Kentucky Fried Chicken, and they live in the house.
Right. That's what we call in the staffing industry the passive candidate, right?
Yes.
Robert Hazard, since you probably do the most dating of everybody on the show.
Okay.
Robert did. He didn't deny it. He was like,
he said,
okay,
he
whatever.
He said present, babe. He said present.
Guilty.
You know.
All right.
Oh, damn.
Claim your lover, right?
I didn't do that. That was not me.
Yeah.
So
I'll get him later, Glenn. I'll get him later.
Is it 10 times harder for a woman to find a good husband than it is for a man to find a good wife?
Well, I think that
I was going to say you found 3, but it does say good wife. So I can't make that.
All three of my wives were great women, so, and are still great women. So I think that it's, and I've been passed over. I think, Dave, you mentioned it, as well, being for me being passed over back in the day, and for whatever reason. And now, what I find is interesting is some of those people that passed me over are coming back. So that's the other thing. To Kevin's point, when we talk about where do we go find the people with that study that's been done, if you're looking in the club for, good quality men. Now, I used to be in the club too back in the day. It's different. And if you go to church, you're not going to necessarily always find us there. So we need to define, where do we find these good men? I've been considered a square and still considered a square. Catch that, a square. So it's, so I think that there's some things behind that we have to look at. But there are great men out there still, and great women.
Yanni Brown raised an interesting and true point. She said sometimes who you want is standing in front of who you need. And that's, again, that's human frailty. And I think that is, something that's a universal. And Robert, you and I talked about this earlier today. A lot of times, because it's maybe coming from the mouth of a man or coming from the mouth of a woman, we gender specify, toward the way we date, if we happen to be heterosexual or what have you, when in actuality, we put that framework out there and it's usually human frailty. So we don't really understand that we're perpetuating a gender a particular way, when in actuality, what we're talking about is a human frailty, and men are just as guilty of it as women, and vice versa. Robert and I were talking about a clip that we saw where a woman basically said, when the man and woman starts dating, the woman starts to treat the man the way he treats her. Like they treat each other a certain way at the beginning, but then she starts to treat him the way he treats her. And I'm like, well, that's universal. I'm a man. I'm gonna do that too. If I can't get you when I call you on the phone, then you're not gonna always be able to get me. If I'm gonna meet you where we are until we decide this is what we're doing, or we're doing something better, or we're not doing anything at all. I'm gonna come in guns a blazing and trying to meet every need. But if you show me you don't want the same level of relationship that I want, but I'm still interested in you enough to negotiate what's left of that, then you're probably gonna get a mirror image of yourself. Because I always believe that I'm coming in hot. I'm gonna come in a lot more open and free and giving, and I'm looking for you to match me. And if you can't match me, I'm not gonna take it personally. I'm just gonna understand you're not looking for the level of relationship that I'm looking for, and I'll dial mine back. But again, that's not something men do more than women, or women do more than men. I think that's a human frailty, and I think it's a safety precaution. It's some insurance for our heart. We go into protection mode. Glenn, you seem like you have something to say on that, and I want you to address the 10 times harder to find a husband comment as well.
Yeah, no, I wanted to address that because Ali Wong is very funny. I like her.
Mm-hmm.
She had a movie called Always Be My Maybe. Great movie.
Right.
Asian leads. Great movie.
I've been following her since her first special, man. She's funny.
Yeah, but she's totally wrong on this. I'm going to use a sports reference. You can't strike out 9 times out of 10 and want to be a batting coach. That, missing and failing does not make you an expert at dating. It makes you a failure at dating. Right. That's what it makes you. So you can't go in and claim that you know about every man when you haven't made it work with a good man in a decade. I'm like, women, you can't be coming up being experts by being a failure, Yeah. Those that fail teach is a saying, but that's a lie, because those that fail. That's basically what you do. So you can't go comment about everybody else's relationship around the world. You are not an expert at it. You have failed at it. You don't know what you're doing yet. You're still learning like all of us, and you're human. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But you can't go giving advice about it if you've never had any proof of it.
But I think some of that is also, man, the world that we live in. You know, I posted the other day a quote that I think maybe the verbiage kind of threw people and they didn't quite understand what I was saying. I'd seen a quote that said, but I'd actually seen a post that a young lady had posted, and it said, "I'm not mean. If you think I'm mean, it means you're weak." And I just didn't want to get into a personal debate with her, but I want to say, I know you well enough to know you can be mean.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's why I didn't date you, because a weekend, I'm like, we ain't even, it's too early for this kind of thing. Like, what is this? You know? But I didn't, it wasn't a personal thing. It was more like, we live in a world now that blames the other person for not being willing to embrace their dysfunction. Like, you're mean. That's the power social media has given people. Nobody really has to be accountable for themselves, because they can just say, no, you can't handle me, or I'm too much for you, or this, that, and it absolves them. When in actuality, no, you mean as shit, and don't nobody want to be bothered with that. You know what I'm saying? And you don't want to own the fact that you're mean. You know, we this self-actualized thing has kind of gotten out of control. Come on, Kevin, I can see you chomping at the bit. I can't wait to hear from you.
You know, one of the things I want to say, you know, you talked about the meanness. You know, one of the things, you know, some women know how to do it, some men know how to do it, right? You know, you can find, you know, a man that can find a good woman, and you can find a woman that seems to be able to find a good man. But to your point, if you haven't been taught, if you haven't learned, if you continue to perpetuate, you know, not knowing how to do it, you're gonna have a problem. You know, I'm a golfer. I grew up playing golf, but you know, you can actually practice the game, but if you don't have the fundamentals down, you can practice golf all day without having the fundamentals, and you will always shoot 95.
Right.
You can't get better. So I think that if
you're practicing wrong, you're going to play wrong.
So in short, I'll say, for those that don't know how to do it, I think that's a problem. I think it's on the onus for, you know, for the older women to teach the younger ladies, and likewise for the men with the younger boys. And I think without an understanding of the game that you're in, I think it's extremely difficult to be successful.
Yeah, no, you're right. And for the mean person, Sean, but I mean, people need to get off that. This is who I am. All that Popeye BS. I am what I am, and that's all.
I hate it, man.
That's what you sound like. You sound like Popeye.
You are, to me, you are a failure. I hate to say it, but you are a failure if you say that, and you know that the behavior you're exhibiting has bared you no good fruit.
Yeah, I saw somebody mention J-Lo as an example. No, J-Lo is an example of, if On to the Next One by Jay-Z was a person, it'd be J-Lo.
Well, J-Lo is always an example of, when I operate on this level and make this kind of money, I can make these kind of moves. You know, if you work at Walgreens and you bouncing between me and that, your grandmama is gonna call you a hoe. You know, it's different. There's levels to this. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are people that are idolizing J-Lo to a degree that she can do some stuff a local woman, you know, would do and get dragged for. So we champion who we want to, based on our own desire to do so.
But women, there's not that you know, there are not good men out there. It's like, you know, are you ready to really be a wife? Because you might be a good woman. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a good wife either, though.
Yeah, you know, you're onto something there, Glenn, because I heard someone who remain nameless talk about, if you
please, Robert, make sure she remains nameless.
I know, right?
I got enough heat on this show.
I know, you know, but she said if you want a Proverbs 31 wife, you've got the wrong one. And I'm like, okay,
but at least she told you that. At least she was
Yeah,
up
at least she
front
knows
about
who
it,
she
you know?
is.
Yeah, but she told me that after 5 years of. Come
You
on.
didn't mention that
Robert,
part,
your
Robert. You didn't
timing.
mention that part.
Okay. I mean,
It's a little late.
I mean, come on now. I mean, if you're going to say that, and and I'm down for that because we both can study the scriptures together. I would have liked to have known that on the front end, so that
Dave, I want you and Kevin to get up from this show and walk right in with your wives and say, "Look here, ain't nothing you need to tell me. If you ain't got no announcements for me at this juncture, at this stage of the game. You ain't got nothing you've been toying with that you need to drop on me, do you?
Right.
Good, right? Got no announcements.
Because
Let me ask you guys this. Let me,
Come on, Kevin. Come on.
do
Kevin.
you when you see those that do it, do you ask yourself, I'll just pick a group. I'll just say, I don't know what they taught the women in the Kardashian home. But
you don't want to ask my brother that.
Yeah, right. But so, I don't know what goes on inside the house because I'm not in the room, but I do know that you see people that can actually do it over and over. You would say, you and I would say, I'm not going to date you because you've dated too much. But for some reason, not only do I want to date you, I want to marry you. So all I'm just saying is that these are the secret game that maybe most women won't tell. If you find you somebody that's been married for 30 years, that's the one you need to go talk to try to pull their coattail and say, give me the game, right?
Yeah.
But if you're talking to somebody else's point, if you never have been able to actually do it, you really don't want to get advice from that person, right?
Right.
Because they don't have the secrets. The secrets are with those other people.
But check this out, Kevin. This is how defiant I think we are. I bet you if you gathered 10 couples like you described that have been married for 20 years, and they have a whole bunch of people on social media, every time they picture come up, underneath it is full of comments going, "This is my favorite couple. It's my favorite couple. The Black Power couple." All of that, right?
Do they sound like that, Sean, when they say
they sound like Uncle Ruckus.
Yeah, my favorite.
Raj, I read that the same way. I'm glad you saw that. Asses. I bet you they're gonna start with the same thing, which is compromise. Sure. Like it's not rocket science. We know you have to walk into that situation with a huge degree of selflessness. That's the key.
But Sean, you're being hard on women, Sean. They compromise as long as he looks like Idris Elba and makes six figures. They will compromise they'll compromise as long as the day goes on. Now, if he's about 5'5" and balding, but a really nice guy, well, no, it's just something about
Dave said something earlier about how he had been looked over a couple of times and what. Man, we would need a 2-hour show if I talked to you about how many times and why I had been looked over. Like you being nice, you all handsome and good looking and charming, dude. I have been. Well, short is one reason why you joking. Like for whatever reason, men will say why they don't want somebody.
We're going to get him started now.
Men will say why they don't want somebody. Women won't tell you the truth.
Nope, they'll be nice about it though. They'll break it down. He's just not my type. He's just not my type. I'm just looking for something else right now, and I'm just trying to find me.
And then the next week,
it's not you.
Next week you see him with a gorilla that makes 6 figures, and you be like,
or a garbage man that's putting it down, but he looks like Idris Elba. Y'all will make an exception in a minute if he looks good enough on women.
Or a midget with a baby leg.
Yeah, they'll make a hell of an exception depending on how he looks.
Y'all
call us materialistic, really?
Yeah. Now that saying about the whole 10 times thing is it really comes down to like what you're seeing, and I think they need to be more focused on how they're seeing. So when I think about my situation, and I talked about it before, like, I mean, my wife, we started seeing each other when I was living in my mom's basement. Now, there are a number of people who would have been like, you know, that's not on the checklist. He need to have his own place, or he need to be doing whatever. Those same people probably now are like, girl, you got it made. You got this, you got that. You doing it. How you find him? Where you find him? Not to say that every situation where somebody's living in the basement winds up working out, but she was able to see past some of those things. And
your circumstance and see you and see value in you and what you're going to do, which I think is not the same as dating someone based on their potential, which I think is a mistake. But I think that you can see someone and know that their current address doesn't reflect where they're going to always be. And you might be like, ooh, this is the Veterans Day sale. I need to slide in here and get this, you know, at a low cost. I have an ex-girlfriend that I'm, to this day, we're still very, very good friends. We have we still go out and have a drink. We went to a wedding together less than a year ago. We're just real cool like that. We dated back in like 2013, right? 2012, something like that. When we met, she was unemployed and living in her mother's basement. And I mean, I wasn't balling out, you know, but I was okay. But I didn't look at her and think, oh my God, you probably ain't never held a job before in your life. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, I met you during a season. That's just a season, you know. Let's rock out and get together, get to know each other. I know your situation is going to change, you know, and indeed it did, you know. So I don't know if maybe there is that provider thing that hovers over us so bad that a woman, she so much wants to see you as a provider if you're on your back or they meet you in your valley, right? And I don't care what you are or when it is, everybody's going to have valley moments, right? And to me, this sounds cornball, but I would rather meet you in my valley moment, because then I know who you are and I know what's important to you. Because a lot of guys find themselves with women that have never seen them in a valley moment. And then when the valley moment comes and they can't do what they used to do, the woman is no longer willing to be who she has been. And then you have the revelation of this is the thing that's actually been the glue to us. And so,
these relationship chats are always going to be so exciting and so multi-dimensional, because I hear what you just said. And it's a valid point. I get where you're coming from as far as being in the valley, people seeing you, whatever. But then there's the argument that, you know what, those people who see you when you're at your heights, they're at a different level. Their standards are different, and they can probably help you to get to another place. And that maybe you don't want somebody who is, I don't want to use any negative terms, but just, you know, willing to take somebody down.
Let me tell you a really, really personal. I hear what you're saying. I'm gonna tell you a really, really personal story. Right? It won't be long, Raj. I promise.
Okay, we're gonna hold you to it.
Well, you delaying me, Robert. You delaying me. So I had a relationship end at a time when I was going into a financial valley, and my mate was having a peaking moment, right? And a lot of her circle saw me as the weight, right? Now, meanwhile, we had been back to back battling the world for X amount of years, right? But when her upgrade came, at the same time that my decline came, all of a sudden I was dead weight that she had to carry. And they were in her ear like, you need to upgrade, you need to upgrade, you need to upgrade. So fast forward, we split. And I remember, and this was one of the low times of my entire life, right? In terms of where I was living, what I had to do to survive after that decline and then that relationship ended. And I remembered, man, sitting in a spot and actually thinking about relocating, because I felt like if I hit the big money gig, that person could say, see, they were leaning on me and they needed me to get out of the way so they could fulfill their potential. But if I never hit the big money gig, they could say, see, he was leaning on me and was never going to do anything without me present. I remember feeling like that was such a hopeless place because none of it was true. Neither one of them was true. It was just a valley moment, right? But I remember feeling so powerless in that moment that I legitimately thought about leaving Chicago, because I was like, whatever happens to me, they won't be sitting on the side watching it and narrating it and creating their own narrative with it. You know what I'm saying? So I say all that to say, oftentimes, man, we see what our issues want us to see in a situation. It might not be what it really is, but we see it in a way that feeds our preconceived, notions about things, So it becomes a very tricky thing. Kevin, you look like you had something in the hopper.
I do, yeah. One of the things, relationships are unpredictable. One thing that you can't do, you can't pick the right mate. You don't know a person until you actually know them, right? And you don't know them until,
There's some bad shit happen, Kevin.
Right? Yeah, you dating, and that's different than living with somebody.
Yeah,
5 years, because you see everything. But what I will say is that one of the quotes on my book, I say, if you don't stay in the game, you'll never know your worth. So what I haven't mentioned before is that I met my wife in college. We got married in '89. Year and a half after we got married, I had a car accident and I got paralyzed. So I'm paralyzed from the waist down and have been for the last 30 years, right? But but my wife, we worked it out. She didn't leave. I mean, sure, it was tough, right? And you just never know. Tough things happen, right? But if you can't figure out how to be committed to it, then the problem is, if you break, if you leave, you never know. So you never know what it actually could have been. Things are gonna happen. So unless you're committed, unless you're willing to hang in the game, to be a soldier, if you leave premature, that's just a book that ended in chapter 2. You have no idea about what would have happened. And I'm not saying stay in an abusive relationship. I'm not saying do something that's detrimental to you. But sometimes I think we can be premature, because we've got this utopic vision about life, and that's not true. It doesn't work like that.
Watching too many movies and letting too many music videos tell you the way it's really supposed to be.
So for all you that left us in chapter 2, you missed out on bestsellers.
Right, your mama.
Remember that.
For all y'all that left us in chapter 2, your mama, and if she's not here,
you know what you did. Mel ain't here, but you know what you did.
Man, we've got to stop looking at what we see in social media and as well as on television, and think that those are the right marriages. And we also got to stop, I think Glenn said it earlier, letting the people that want to be coaches to us, that have not had success in marriage or any of those things, breathe into your ear and things like that. Hey, I want to say something real quick. Kevin, thanks so much for sharing your story, because that is really a testament. And if the people in the audience would listen to that, I believe you said that was early on in your marriage that you had that situation.
Year and a half. We've been married for 32 years now.
Yeah. See, y'all need to hear that again, people, because that whole process right there, I mean, people are.
Look, I had somebody leave me because I was between jobs. Ain't that
well,
hey, man, I'm not to cut you off, Robert. I'm sorry. Yeah. We're less than a minute in, man. And the production team is telling me we got to get out of here really quick. Kevin, tell me the title of your book, brother.
The title of it is Fatherhood. So if you Google Kevin Patrick Fatherhood, you'll find it. It's on Amazon, several places. It's being sold around the world.
Kevin Patrick Fatherhood. Hey, man. Yes. You have been incredible, man, and we got to get you back, man, just to champion us some more behind that great story you have. Robert, I'm sorry for having had to cut you off. Big Dave, we love you, dude. Ain't nothing you can do about it. We love you more than you can even fathom, man. You one of us. And everybody that's watching, we hope you've had a great show. I've enjoyed this show. I'm already looking forward to having Kevin back and Dave for the 19th time in the room. So until next Thursday, make sure you don't leave. Kevin, okay. Dave, both y'all stay and hang out in the green room. Until next Thursday, this has been your man and the men, We'll see you next Thursday live in the cave for sure.
Camped out at home for COVID? Join us, Indie TV, where you will see the talk shows, movies, drama, action, and comedy. Be the first and see it first. Sign up now for free at Indie TV.